What is going on YouTube? Kronos here and welcome back to another PSO2 video. So today I want to do a follow-up video talking about the add-on skills. I feel like I didn't really give them the credit that they were deserved, and I could also toss in a bit of extra information about how you should realistically be rolling your add-on skills and why it's not really that hard to think about getting these add-on skills. Well, right now you guys are going to see my ship 3 character. This is the character I was running on the other day. So I've got plenty of cubes. You can see I have 99 of them right here. So I can show you guys a couple of things. So some things I did leave out of my video the other day, I wanted to go ahead and address here really quick. When you are rolling add-on skills, there's a couple things to think about. One, of course, after you roll the skill, if you're going to be keeping it, make sure to attach it to one of these. You need to make sure it's on one of these registered add-on skill slots to actually be usable. So as you can see, I rolled this. It's 18, 1, and 11. Really don't need this as it is at the moment, so I'm not going to register it, but you want to register at least one. That way it is usable. Second, you can change the actual add-ons that you're using by simply heading onto add-on skill set and then selecting the add-on you want. For example, I have 3 sets for bouncer. If let's say I don't want the HP for some reason, but I do want the PP upon joining a trial, I simply select it. Now you'll see I've lost a bit of HP, but if I were to jump into a trial, I would gain some PP. And we can just simply go back and of course change that over. Let me see if this, yeah, this is the better one. Now I see I've changed this back and my HP has gone back up. You can see how much the add-on skills provide you when you're looking at the actual add-on skill set. So let's take a look. Let's see, pop over to Hunter. We can mouse over this horrific melee potency up level 2 and see that I'm getting 0.5%. Every level looks like it's worth 0.5, actually 0.25, I guess. So this is level 2. I guess level 1 would give you 0.25, and then level 2 would give you up to 0.5. We'll have to see. So as far as these skills go, I did want to also talk about the different add-on skills you could get and how usable or how important they're going to be. Because realistically speaking, you're going to need certain add-on skills and you absolutely want them. So how should you be rolling add-on skills? I did briefly touch on this in the previous video, but essentially you want to roll on the class you have the most cubes first. And all you're going to be rolling is add-on skill 1. The point of this is the more add-on skills you roll, and this is a correction from yesterday, or from the other day, but more add-on skills you roll, the sooner you get to add-on skill 2 and 3. So it's not getting to a certain level that unlocks it, it's rolling multiples of them. Eventually you unlock 3, which we have found out that even if you get to 20, it does not go any higher than this. And I believe there's some people that are up to like 2,000 rolls. I think it's pretty safe to say that add-on skill 3 is the highest it's going to go. So once you unlock add-on skill 3, your next goal is to get every single class in the game to at least level 30. Now, you're probably thinking that's insane. That's going to be super hard, blah, 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 blah. It really isn't. Right now, yellow cubes or yellow tickets, right? Well, yellow triggers, that's the word I'm looking for. I was like, yellow cubes, yellow tickets, yellow triggers. Yeah, that's actually fairly expensive, 8K a piece, but a lot of people have a ton of them. And you can turn these triggers, you can trade in pretty much every kind of trigger. Yeah, it looks like they're all evening out on prices, at least on this ship. It's a good thing I won't need them for a long time, but yellow triggers are basically the way to level at the moment. So I'm sure there'll be plenty of other ways to get a hold of triggers. Yeah, it looks like they've all even out to about 8K a piece. I'm sure someone bought out a ton of these and reposted them on the market because that's how markets work. We'll talk about that in a different video, but basically you run the yellow triggers, you get tons of experience. It's actually pretty comfy for leveling, but essentially all you need to do, run yellow Kavaris triggers with the other class that is your subclass. You'll level it very, very quickly. And the reason you want to get it to level 30 is because there is a title for this that gives you a single class cube. You can then take that single class cube and you roll the higher level add-on skill. And the reason for it is because it makes it so you guaranteed roll at least a level 10 and level 10 of two of the 4 sub effects you have access to. So what it does is it means since you only have access to 1 cube, if you don't want to level everything, you at least get a solid main effect boost with a chance of it being higher. It doesn't mean that you can only roll level 10. It just means the lowest you can roll is level 10. And since you're not going to have a bunch of cubes, if you're only leveling it to 30, then awesome. Now, if you want to take it a bit further and level it to 50 instead, which you continue to do the same strategy, just run Kavaris yellows with the class set to your subclass. I think at about level 46 to 48, you can go ahead and switch over to that class being your main class. Take your main class, make it your subclass, or maybe put another class there. Make sure you have enough gear to be able to get into the yellow, and then you want to run Redem yellows until you hit about level 52. For some people, 53 so they can equip a certain weapon, but 52 tends to be enough since you can equip your Belgren at that point, and you're good to go. But that's kind of more so if you're trying to level a bunch of stuff. Basically, you can get away mostly with just setting these classes as your subclass. And the next, I guess, point you want to level to is level 50. In the class level 50 will get you another class cube. If you're thinking to yourself, I haven't got my class cubes yet, I have multiple classes at 50, just make them your main class. You'll get the title and you'll get the class cubes. You'll be good to go. And all you'll be doing is just rolling that add-on skill 3. It does cost 50k. I do not recommend rolling this if you're rolling a bunch of times. If you're rolling a bunch of times, like you have tons of cubes, let's say you're like me and you have like almost 100, all we're going to be rolling is add-on skill 1. Why? Because there's no cap on how high it can be, and we don't want to spend a ton of money. The sub effects is where you roll your add-on skill 3s if you're really trying to get really good add-on skill 3s. If you don't have a lot of cubes. If you have a ton of cubes, I would still recommend rolling add-on skill 1s, even if you're trying to get a high rank sub effect, because you can get high rank sub effects even while rolling 1s, and it's much cheaper that way. Basically, the 3s are if you don't have a lot of cubes that you only want to get a decent roll. You want to minimize the amount of bad rolls you can get. You roll 1s if you've got tons of cubes, and then just set any class as your subclass and run yellows. Tons and tons and tons of people are running yellows. You can probably go into town and ask, is anyone running yellows? Even if you don't have an alliance or a group of people to run with, you will find groups of people running yellows, because right now people are leveling Waker, people are getting class cubes, and they want to get all this taken care of. So we're about 6 minutes in. I've explained the importance of getting these class cubes. Let's take a look at the skills and see what we can get a hold of. So starting off with Hunter. Hunter will give us melee weapon potency up. The sub effect are PA charge movement speed up, HP recovery upon joining a trial, burn resistance, and HP up. This is going to be kind of similar for a lot of different classes with the sub effects. There's essentially something that feels like it comes from the class, something that goes with joining a trial, some form of elemental resistance, and usually HP or PP up in some form. So with Hunter, from here, my biggest, at least for me personally, the two big ones for me would be HP and burn resistance. The PA charge movement speed up, I don't play a class that uses PA charge movement speed, and I feel like that's kind of niche unless like you're a Hunter main specifically. I'm trying to think of another class that it would make a difference for, but maybe Tekker. That's all I can think of honestly at this point. Oh, I guess Gunner to some extent, because they have some charge PAs, but like that's really about it. Realistically speaking, I feel like HP up and burn resistance up are kind of like the main ones here. You can kind of drop burn resistance, really. You don't absolutely need it, but it'll be nice to have so you don't take a bunch of damage. Fighter is a high priority. The reason for it is because its main effect gives you critical hit potency up. Where we saw Hunter gave us, melee weapon potency up, which is important if you play melee classes. Fighter is going to give you critical hit potency up, which is important for every single class in the game. It's just flat damage increase on crits, which is awesome. Its sub effects, from here, honestly, it's a toss-up of 3. You have jump power up, freeze resistance up, and HP up. If you can only get 2, jump power up and freeze resistance up might be really good. HP up is really good universally, no matter what the situation is. Jump power up and freeze resistance up may not be fantastic either way. I feel like the two most important are going to be jump power up and HP up. Freeze resistance up you can get from another class, you don't have to pick it up here. Moving on, we have Ranger. Ranger is basically the ranged equivalent to Hunter, where it has range weapon potency up, super nice. And then from here we have a couple of choices. We have shock res up, we have photon blast potency up, and we have HP up, of course, for Ranger. Now of these, I would highly recommend picking up shock resistance if you don't already have a class that's going to have it. If you do, HP up and photon blast potency up, you're good to go. You definitely want to get photon blast potency up, it's just flat damage. Definitely feels useful. I mean, like, it may not be a ton, but it's still extra damage on your photon blast, which is going to equate to being higher damage, unless you're someone who doesn't care about damage. Then maybe the HP is fine for you. But my choices here would definitely be photon blast up, and shock res if I don't already have it. If I do, HP up. HP is just kind of the universal, really, really nice one, especially with the Belgren situation. That's basically why we're grabbing these resistances, is if you're someone who uses Belgren, your res is probably pretty terrible, and this is kind of invaluable. It's really, really good. Even just getting, I think, 1 freeze res I haven't been frozen on a single hit. Like it takes like 2-3 hits now again for me to get frozen, which is nice, especially since I'm using full Belgren. Okay, looking at the next, we have, where are we at? We're at Gunner. So Gunner gets offensive PB gauge accumulation up. Super cool, just means you get faster photon blasts. Offensive PP recovery up. PP recovery, I feel like these are always a wash. Like these aren't very good. Blind resistance up and HP up. So blind res, yeah, important, but at the same time, there's not a lot of things that do blind you, and usually are not very important that you have to deal with. It doesn't stop you from being able to attack. It just means occasionally you miss, which can be pretty big depending upon what you actually swung that missed. So offensive PP recovery up, also pretty solid. It's kind of like dealer's choice here, in my opinion. HP up is going to be the solid always get. I probably would end up going with blind resistance up, maybe offensive PP recovery up. I think it's just going to depend on which one rolls higher. It's just whatever rolls high with HP up is what I'm going to be going for. Force, again, it's the the equivalent of Hunter and Ranger, where it has technique weapon potency up. Definitely going to be useful. You absolutely want to get this. Natural PP recovery up. If you're already playing Force, you already have a ton of this anyway, even in like your fixes. So this might not be as important to you, but this is pretty comfy, especially when you see a add-on skill we have later in the classes. HP up as always, fantastic. Panic resistance up. Panic kind of sucks, so getting it would be really nice, but there might be another choice of a class that has access to this later on. I believe there is actually. So a situation where if you already have it, just get natural PP recovery up. If you don't, go ahead and pick it up here and then get your HP up. You'll notice that HP up is kind of always a choice here in my opinion, because it's just comfy. Like having extra HP is just really nice. It might save you from getting one shot in certain situations, or especially if you're playing Waker where you've got a lot of skills that are, take less damage when you're under a certain percentage of your HP. Having that HP buffer can be really, really useful. Tekker does give us the natural photon blast gauge accumulation up. I mean, this is just nice to have. Don't really need to push this super high. I mean, really, this only matters in situations where if you didn't have this, you wouldn't get an extra photon blast, or you wouldn't have got a photon blast fast enough for a break phase. So this can matter, but it's not always like a direct translation of this is always going to matter. Damage resistance up. If you're someone who's like, you know what, I want this class for damage resistance, and I would like to have extra damage resistance. You probably have noticed in some of my videos I've mentioned that Waker subclass isn't super useful as like that much of a subclass. People are like, oh, well, all the damage resistance. Well, this is what I meant by you can get free damage resistance without having to go Waker. It's right here. Poison resistance up. I don't think this is that important. It's kind of like burn. You just take some damage, and it's not like it's a ton of damage that you're going to get absolutely obliterated. So it's actually pretty comfy to take damage res up and HP up here. Braver, this is another staple that everyone is going to need to level. Braver and Fighter basically are going to be the most important ones to level outside of like your main weapon potency up. So this gives you critical hit rate up, very, very useful. When you crit, you get your max roll of your damage plus 20%, which is super comfy. And then of course, if you have fixes that increase crit damage, that's also super awesome. So from here, HP up, super good. Burn resistance, not very important to me. HP recovery up, again, not very important when joining a trial. At least not that I have seen. I mean, maybe there's like content in the future that's going to be like a trial pops, you get a bunch of HP back and it's super comfy there. I just don't feel like it's going to be that important regardless of what you're looking at. And then rest assign heal amount up. This actually kind of useful because having the extra heal, like having the heal be larger, synergizes with situations like playing Waker where you sacrifice the potency of your heal for having the heal over time. Maybe that heal now is a little bit larger. Maybe the heal over time is a bit bigger as well. So that's super cool. And then of course, getting your HP up is pretty standard. I feel like HP up has been like, you could argue for HP up in all of these, except for situations where you want 2 of like the first and third. Bouncer. Bouncer is actually pretty awesome. So this is one of the situations where you could probably drop HP up for comfort. So dash and glide PP recovery. A lot of people have been asking for something like this, where you're basically getting dash and PP recovery, where your natural PP recovery is activating whenever you're dashing or gliding. This synergizes with Force. This synergizes with other classes that have access to natural PP recovery up on like say armor they're wearing. So like say fixes and things like that. This synergizes with weapon effects. Like this is really, really, really good. So you definitely want to get a hold of this. Super awesome. Definitely pick it up. And even if it's, let's say if it was in a reduced effect, even if this was like baseline and you only got this effect alone, it's still amazing. So definitely awesome. Encore Jump. Encore Jump is really weirdly worded. I'm actually gonna go over to my add-on skills to let you guys read it as well. So I haven't really figured this out completely. Do I have Encore Jump on any of these? I don't have Encore Jump on any of these. Crap. I should have... Hold on. Okay, I just rolled really quick until I got one with Encore Jump really quick so you guys could read it. Here you go. Encore Jump. Do an additional jump when you hit an enemy with an attack while double jumping. So what it sounds like is like you double jump, hit an enemy with an attack, you get an extra jump. But from what I understand, this is essentially the way the skill like extra jump on hero worked back in base game, where you would jump or continue to jump if your secondary jump landed on a target. So basically you'd be able to jump, like kind of wall jump up an enemy and do a bit of damage. Now, I've seen some pictures on Twitter of people doing this, and I'm pretty sure that's exactly how it works. If that's the case, I feel like the usefulness here is actually pretty high. This is kind of cool. But it's gonna be a situation of it might need some testing. So we'll have to see how this actually works out. My choices here definitely would be the Encore Jump and then the freeze resistance. I would take freeze res here as opposed to where we had options for it earlier, I believe. Yeah. So jump power up and HP I'd take here, and then freeze res I would take over on bouncer personally, the freeze res and the Encore Jump. Maybe opt take freeze res on both. They could possibly stack up pretty well. Everything else is stacked, so I won't see a reason why this wouldn't, because getting frozen sucks really bad. And Waker has got PP up, which is just flat PP increase, which is nice. Stationary HP recovery, shock res, and HP up. Here, honestly, I would probably take shock res and HP up. Stationary HP recovery really only matters, in my opinion, to maybe a force, maybe a ranger. I feel like even rangers probably move around a bit too much for this to really be that fantastic. So I would say HP up and shock res up, two fantastic choices to go ahead and go after. And allow you to drop shock res from, let's see, where is it? Nope, you have blind. Yeah, you have shock res. So this will allow you to drop shock res from ranger in case you don't want to grab it here. You can get your photon blast up and HP up, or you can opt to not take HP up and get your shock res and photon blast up and double up on shock res, because getting shocked also sucks because it can knock you out of combos and all kinds of other things. But that's about it. I wanted to talk about every skill that I would go towards, what's useful. It seems pretty obvious, but some people haven't thought of the possible synergies. So I wanted to go through it completely step by step with you guys, kind of like how I used to with my videos back in base game. I know it's a bit of a throwback, but it is helpful for some people. If you guys have any other questions, feel free to toss in the comments below. Like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe when you keep up with more, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care. Peace out.